Are you ready?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Parishscope. This is the podcast that acts as an arm of the newsletter, the Parishscope for St. John, Sam Prairie. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey. I'm the creative worship director at Our Savior Lutheran.
So we were talking about this, and honestly, this has been kind of on my mind for a little bit. It's been on my mind, but Lent, and here's the thing. Like we had, I think one of these podcasts, probably a year or so ago. And it's crazy how many of these we actually have. We have over like 70 episodes. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that we were starting, but then again, we were starting in your house in Pekin. So
yeah. And I mean, I've been here almost 2 years. So yeah, it is pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, actually it was like the 14th of February. So yeah, we've been here 2 years. It's pretty wild.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's, now there you go. Mm-hmm. There you But anyway, but I was thinking, we've done an episode on Lent before, but I was also thinking that maybe it would be worthwhile to kind of do another one. And I got a couple different reasons for that. And one of them is because I think this is one of those things that just bears repeating, like we tend to be forgetful. And, okay, so if you go back in time and listen to the Lent episode, that's awesome. But otherwise, believe it or not, you might not remember. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is specifically in the realm of fasting and spiritual disciplines. I have to admit, I've been a little intrigued as of late. And the more I kind of research and the more I kind of study, I've kind of expanded my knowledge about that. And not just in the sense that, I know more. I mean, obviously that's true, but also even in the sense of, I kind of look at it maybe a little bit differently than I did probably a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And so it might be worth revisiting in that regard. So I figured let's do Lent. Let's talk about Lent.
Let's talk about it.
Yes.
And this is kind of one of the things that really inspired us with doing this podcast, because I did not grow up doing Lent at all. We didn't. I mean, they would sometimes acknowledge it or say, even I remember our pastor did make in one sermon, I remember him bringing up the fact that like his daughter was doing Lent with her friends. And he was saying, oh, that's a great thing. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, it's a good thing to do. We just don't do it. And so it was never presented as a bad thing to me, but it was just something we didn't do. So I'm especially when I started at St. John's, it was definitely a whole new thing for me. And so it's interesting because even though we probably did do it, we did do an episode on it, I still don't remember a ton. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's revisit this. So first, some just historical elements and other elements of this. Lent has been around for what feels like just shy of forever. I don't know if you could trace it back all the way to its dare I say origins, but in some form or another, Lent has kind of been around even since the early church. Now, just like anything, some of the holidays kind of switched in terms of their placement, and that was done here and there. I mean, and you think about this. I mean, imagine you're in a church and the church is kind of brand new and they're kind of developing their own traditions. Like, they 1 week they might decide to do one thing, and then like a month or two later they might say, well, that was just a bad idea. Let's do it over here, or something like that. And the early church was kind of like that. Like, they knew that there were certain traditions and certain days that they wanted to make sure that they commemorated, that they celebrated. But how they did that wasn't clearly defined really, really early on. But after a while, some clear definitions kind of began to emerge. And, by the time you hit about 3 to 380 AD, and I bring up 380 because that's where the apostolic constitutions came out, and that was written, and that kind of really organized a lot of different things. And And again, what they did even then was just say, this is what everybody's doing. And, kind of like, you guys can do the same. This is what everybody's doing. Like, this is what we're all doing together kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even know if Lent is mentioned in there, but at the same time, like there's no doubt that by 380, and with that, there was a kind of rhythm that emerged.
Yeah.
And, we talk about how the church service has rhythm, and we talk about how it has highs and lows, and, it has elements of, where like there's high points where you're receiving the word of God, and then all of a sudden, you kind of rejoice and it kind of goes downhill. And one of the things that we rarely talk about is the fact that the church year actually does this as well.
Yes.
Some of that is just natural. Like we have certain times a year that we look forward to, and sometimes that we don't. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
We typically look forward to spring, for instance. We do not necessarily look forward. We look forward to fall. We love fall, but we hate the end of fall, where it starts to get cold. Not quite cold enough for snow, but cold, and it's kind of just cold and miserable, and it looks bleak. And so that's kind of almost like a downward movement of sorts. And so we have these moments throughout the year that we just look forward to, and then things that we maybe don't look forward to. And the church year ultimately has a kind of rhythm that goes with it as well. And, one of the things, and I remember a few weeks ago, I talked about this memento 70 or whatever it was called. And I talked about this group, and one of the things that they have set as their goal is they want people to kind of recapture the rhythm of the church year. And that was actually one of the things that I really enjoyed about actually looking into them and researching them and all that kind of stuff. Along with that, though, I think that there is a certain truth that they highlight, and they do a really good job of highlighting it. And that is that the church year actually has a kind of rhythm to it. And you catch, as a preacher, you catch this. You just do. Some of it is because you're in sync with the church year. Some of it is because not so much you're in sync with the church year, but it's just your busy season versus your non-busy season.
Right.
As Lent picks up, I will be increasingly busy. And Easter will be a time of rejoicing, because ultimately Easter will be kind of the end to the work cycle of sorts. We have work, and then Holy Week comes, and it's like, oh my goodness, tons of work. And then finally, like an explosion at Easter, and then you're like, okay, I'm done. Like I can rest now. So, there is a kind of natural joy from a preacher's standpoint that naturally puts you in that rhythm. But it's a little bit more challenging for the lay person that doesn't have to get up and preach and doesn't have all this extra work that they have to do.
Right.
But that being said, Lent itself has a kind of rhythm to it. And Lent as a whole, I know we want to say Lent, the focus of Lent is, the suffering and death of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And that is correct. But as a sub-focus, a focus that maybe pushes right underneath the surface, is this one that ultimately leads to baptism and in essence joining the church. Which is why, a lot of churches will do catechism, and we'll do catechesis and confirmation, all of that during the Lenten cycle. And that's why, because you have the origins of that. And a lot of people, like when we get to the Easter Vigil service, which is on Holy Saturday, the Saturday right before Easter, a lot of people that have never experienced that service before, when they very first time they ever experience it, they're like, wow, there's a lot of, talk about baptism here. And it's like, well, yeah, because this is when they used to do all their adult baptisms. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
I know. Well, you're letting me lecture.
I'm sorry. Well, I didn't I didn't expect that to just stop abruptly.
No, I know,
yeah.
but I'm just I needed to take a drink.
Yeah.
I got tea and water with me tonight, and I'm just like I needed something.
Yeah.
die of parched throat or something.
I see that. That's interesting though, because I don't feel like that's one thing I don't feel like I've heard a ton about in like Lutheran churches is adult baptisms.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I don't feel like it's talked about a whole lot.
Well, and part of the reason for that is because, most people that are born and raised Lutheran would baptize the infants.
Right.
And so, even the way we look at confirmation has completely changed. You see, most people don't realize this, but this is why confirmation can seem very confusing if you kind of, dare I say, divorce it from history, because confirmation is kind of semi out of place. And what I mean by that is this. So part of what confirmation was that you'd have these churches and they didn't have a pastor. They'd have a pastor that would maybe roam around. And so he'd be there. Let's say he was there once a month. Let's say he had 4 churches to go to. And so he'd be at your church once a month.
So he's Ron Miller.
He's Pastor Ron Miller. Yeah, he's Pastor.
Okay, sorry. Little inside joke for the people who know.
Inside joke. He's a guest pastor at Sam Prairie and Washington quite often.
And so, I think some other places too. I think so.
He is. He stays busy. But yeah, so he would just go around, and so he would baptize infants. And then it was expected that the parents would teach the kid in the faith. And then once the kids reached a certain age, the pastor would then kind of, dare I say, quiz the child, basically just ask them a series of questions, making sure that they were actually raised in the faith. In a sense, almost saying, hey, parents, have you done your job?
Right, right.
And if they have done their job and the child was raised in the faith and knew their stuff, then okay, they can, come to the communion table kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And that was confirmation. So you are confirming your baptism.
Okay.
You are confirming that your parents raised you in your baptism. So that's the whole idea of confirmation. But once you divorce, go ahead.
Oh no, to be honest, that's something I don't know. I'm trying to remember if we've really talked about that or not, because again, confirmation is not something I grew up with. So I think that being in a non-denominational church, I almost feel like baptism in non-denominational churches is sort of, we view it almost as the same thing as confirmation. But just from what you described, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound really like it's the same idea as what they,
So a lot of non-denom churches, and I do mean a lot, but not all, because all non-denominational churches can be wildly different depending on who the preacher and the elders are. Mm-hmm. But most non-denominational churches almost have a Baptist style kind of swag to them, I guess you might say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so a lot of them view baptism as a commitment. So baptism is, in their eyes, my commitment to the Lord.
Yes.
And so that's kind of their in essence their view of it. Lutherans don't view it. We view it as a work of God. And we can get into debates over like text. We go to Romans 6 and Titus 3 and all this kind of stuff. But by and large, this is where the thing comes. Like if it's something that I'm going to do, then yeah, by all means, wait until I'm old enough to make such a call and decision. But if it's something that God is doing, then who really cares? I don't have to be ready for the work of God. Like God does what he does.
Right.
So yeah, it's not, yeah, the views of baptism are different. But, even with that, like if you go to, for instance, Matthew 28, the Great Commission, the one that like everybody knows, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. And then right after that, it says, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we go, okay, that's it. That's great. And then we forget to read the rest of the passage. Because you see, that passage actually has 2 imperatives, 2 commands, if you will. One of them is baptizing. And then the second one is in teaching them all the things that I have commanded you, all the things I told you. And so that's the second part. And so, as Lutherans, we say we can't divorce those 2. We can't separate those two. So if you're going to have baptism, you need to have teaching and training.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be before the baptism. Again, babies can't, they can't learn. They can learn. They learn, but they can't. It's not like they can read scriptures. They don't know how to read. They don't even know how to talk. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's imperative that the parents teach them.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons that like Lutherans as a whole don't necessarily go do the whole fire hose thing. We don't stand out on the street with a fire hose saying, "I baptize you in the name of the Father." We don't do that to like a passerbyers, kind of thing.
Right.
So, and that's why, because we're like, you got to have both. You got to have both. Yeah.
That's interesting because to be completely honest, I don't think that's something that at least someone growing up the way I did has any we don't have any like understanding of that, because we view baptism exactly what you're explaining makes sense to me. And but that's the argument that people use, I think, to be against like you know baptism at birth or a baby's baptism is, they can't, like, they don't know what's going on, they don't have any decision. But like you're saying, it's like that's a process. Like the
Yeah.
baptism and confirmation is a process across that, which a lot of people ignore confirmation and
Yeah.
just say, well, what is this? You're just baptizing a baby, it doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's interesting, because I don't even think I've really completely understood that
Yeah.
until this. Yeah.
Well, then there you go.
There you go.
There you go. But I
Poof,
guess
epiphanies. Right after Epiphany.
right after Epiphany.
So,
But to kind of come back to it, like what we were asking about adult baptisms, is like, when you're born and raised Lutheran, you're going to be baptized as an infant. And so you just don't see as many adult baptisms. But the truth be told is if somebody comes into the church and they've never been baptized before, or they've been baptized only through a non-Christian entity, that is to say, like, for instance, I know Mormons do baptism.
right.
However, Mormons, believe in a different God. They kind of reinterpret God in a different way. And so when they baptize, they're baptizing in the name of a different God, even though they might use the same formula, the same guttural sounds. It ultimately is a different God. And not to get too much into the weeds about that, but this is actually one of those interesting early church debates too, because one of the early church debates that they had was, what happens if you have like an unfaithful priest or an unfaithful bishop? And basically the church said, no, the baptism is still valid. Like, even if the priest or the bishop is unfaithful.
Yeah.
But a lot of this theology comes down to the fact that the bishop is acting in a corporate manner for the sake of the body of Christ, and he's doing it for the sake of God's people. And so basically what it comes down to is, it's not that he says a magic formula. That's not it. So it's not up to his faith, and it's not up to the fact that he says the right guttural sounds, but it does kind of come down to the body of people that, is basically, calling on him to act in their for their sake. So if you have a heretical branch that are all gathered together that don't believe in God, and they want you to baptize somebody in a false name, or in a name that the gutturals might sound right, but is completely different because they reinterpreted it, reimagined it, then no, that baptism actually isn't valid, because they're calling on the name of a false god. So I know it gets a little confusing after a while, because you're like, well, they're using the same sounds, and it's like, yeah, but they're also, saying those sounds to a different god, and so it kind of becomes a little murky. But yeah,
right. No, I get what you're saying. I mean, I understand what you mean by it. And it's all, I don't know, that's all, it's making sense. And I mean, the idea that what happens if a unfaithful pastor does it. I mean, even what you said prior to that, that this is God's act, not
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah.
Therefore, I mean, it shouldn't, null and void, void the person's baptism because of the pastor. It really has nothing to do with the pastor. And, so
Yeah. In
besides
this
being
way,
an extension of God. Yeah.
yeah, in this case, he is acting as, again, he's kind of acting as a representative for the sake of the church. He's supposed to be using his gifts for the glory of God. And so the people have lifted him up as pastor, have called him, and that's why he's supposed to do that, dare I say, corporately, so to speak. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of losing my place a little bit, but that's okay.
No,
We have so many side topics going on now. I'm just like, oh man, where'd I go?
yeah. Well, and
Anyway.
I mean, I don't know how many people, maybe they kind of understand all this already. But yeah, to me, it's just, I'm still very much experiencing Lent and everything that kind of goes into it kind of for the first time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, that's right. That's where I was. So that's one of the kind of the, dare I say, the sub threads of sorts of Lent, is that preparation to receive baptism for the sake of, dare I say, joining the church, for the first time, if you were that. And again, the early church kind of understood this. This all had kind of a rhythm to it. But now there's another part too. And the other part is a little bit more mainframe, so to speak, main thread, if you will. And that is that, again, as you are, looking on at Jesus, as you are in a sense almost joining him on his journey, in a manner of speaking, like listening to the story again, hearing the story again, you are also in a state where you are, dare I say, penitential. And that means you are going to, in essence, bring yourself low.
Ah.
And here's where things get kind of, for me, kind of interesting, right? So, for years, and I mean years, I've always kind of taught Lent and this idea of a penitential season in a certain way. And I don't disagree with it. I think I taught it the right way. I'm not saying that I was completely wrong. But I would say over the last year especially, I've really kind of expanded the way I understood that.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me explain. So I used to say that part of penitential is to, in essence, to prepare yourself. And a huge part
Yeah.
of preparing yourself is things like prayer. And it is things like a devotional life. And by the way, Ash Wednesday is the time to start a devotional. A lot of reading plans, devotional start on Ash Wednesday. It is the time.
Mm.
And even the way I used to look at fasting was kind of like fasting was almost a way to add more devotional time into your life. To take some of those things out of your life. So like, let's say you're going to say, I'm going to skip lunch. I'm going
Right.
to eat breakfast. I'm going to eat dinner, but I'm going to skip lunch, and I will take the time that I normally eat for lunch and I will dedicate that to the Lord. I will, spend it in prayer. I will spend it in devotion. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even tell people like, hey, don't start a diet, with Lent, because, you know, diets end. Our diets aren't supposed to end.
Right.
Diets are supposed to like change the way you eat, and Lent has an end date. It has a time where it stops and it ceases. Um, and so that was kind of the way I always kind of presented it. But I will say that, over the last, couple months, maybe even longer, as I've been reading through some books, and some of the books I've been reading have really been driving this point home, is that a lot of people in the early church, that was not necessarily how they viewed uh, fasting or even a penitential season. Now I would say though, they didn't necessarily disagree with that; they just added to it. To
Mm.
them, fasting was a lot more than just that. And again, I've always kind of known that, but I guess I didn't necessarily present in that regard. But I've always I like this. The way they kind of do it is this. They kind of look at it almost like it's let's say you have, how how to say this. It's almost like you're increasing in level. And so if you can master one thing, then what's to stop you from mastering another thing? You know, almost like a prereq. You know, like let's say I don't know. I feel like you would have a really good grasp of this because of instruments, you know. Like if you master one
Yeah.
instrument, certain other instruments have certain similarities. Now they're not the same, they're not identical, and you'd
Mm-hmm.
still have to learn how to play them, but it might give you a leg up in terms of learning how to play them. I remember when I was in middle school and I played the trumpet, they wanted us all to play the French horn. And
Yeah.
and part of it was they said, well, you kind of have a leg up because you know the trumpet already. And so I kind of look at it almost like that. And that's kind of the way the ancient church almost looked at fasting. And the way they did it was they would say, okay, take, take food. You know, food shouldn't control you. It shouldn't control you. And if food is controlling you, then that's gluttony. And so don't let food control you. One of the ways that you can tame food is by denying it, rejecting it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even when your body says, "Oh, I really want this," and "Oh, I really want to eat this and yada yada yada," say no, you can't have that. Too bad. You know,
Yeah.
your body isn't in control of you. You're in control of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, though: it's not sinful to eat. It's not sinful to have a meal. It's not sinful to eat lunch or not eat lunch. You know, and
Yeah.
so here you are taking on something that in its own right is not sinful. And you're trying to master it. And it's hard and it's challenging. And it should be hard and it should be challenging. And then the idea is that, hey, if you can master that, then what's going to happen later down the line is all of a sudden there's going to be some vice that comes along, some sin that comes along. Somebody's going to point out some sin to you. And instead of just saying, okay, whatever, you're going to start saying, no, I can, you know what, food can't master me. This thing can't master me. And it's like you got a leg up. It's like that one step further to where you can say, okay, I got this. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not so much, you're not doing it to say like, I'm going to earn salvation or something like that. Again, you don't want to confuse that, but you also want to take the law of God seriously. And that was what they were doing. They were saying, God doesn't want me to do this. And so therefore, I will try to master my body so that I don't do this. I'm never going to do perfect, and there's always going to be some aspect of sin in my life, but I can at least try my best to kind of manage this and to work against this. And I think understanding it like that and the way that they kind of understood it. First of all, that is a very masculine approach. And I think part of it is that's one of the things that really appeals to me, right? Is like, you're not just stopping eating because you don't want to eat. You're stopping eating because you're trying to master your body to prepare yourself to do battle against sin.
Right.
And it's like, and I think that's the first thing that I really like about it. And the second thing that I really like about it is how many times in our own lives have we said, I'd really like to do battle against sin, but where do you even start? You know,
Yeah.
uh, Sin kind of creeps into your life, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, now I'm stuck with this vice, and it's like it can feel so insurmountable. And part of the whole way that they viewed fasting was basically saying, hey, let's help make something that seems so insurmountable actually, doable. And we're going to
Right.
do it by tackling something that's not even sinful because it shouldn't control you either. And then we can work from there and we can kind of work our way up.
Yeah, you kind of brought up the example of music, and I would
Yeah.
say it's kind of with music, when you learn an instrument really, really well, when you get another instrument, like for me, I was a drummer and knew a little bit of piano and chords, and then I took a guitar class, and I did really well in that guitar class because I already understand all the concepts that go with music. Like I understand what it takes and how to kind of like form a melody or what this means or what that means. And that meant I could like I could learn the guitar a lot faster than other people in the class who had no concept of that. So I think like you're kind of putting with Lent, it's like if you can master fasting a little bit and telling yourself no, that can lead to stronger things that maybe are even more uh, harder to deny yourself. You know,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
like if you always give in to any desire you have, well, when you're, when someone gives you an option, that is a really bad sinful thing, if you've never denied yourself, it's going to be really hard to do that. But if you're comfortable with denying yourself, eating and
Yeah.
even though those like we'll just the example of someone maybe trying to coerce you into something like a physical
Physical
thing
thing.
that they shouldn't be. uh if you've already denied yourself things in life and had self-control, it's a lot easier to say no to that
Yeah.
than if you're just such an impulsive person and you say yes to everything, you do it whatever you want in the moment. It's really hard to say no if you really want to do that thing,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, again, that was how they kind of viewed fasting. And again, so that kind of actually did actually expand, my whole thought process with this. And one of the things that was interesting about it is the more I read about it, and again, this is more, in the ancient world, they didn't care about things like diet and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
again, in the ancient world, like how a person viewed their body, um, was very important. And actually, I think that this is something that is lost, especially in modern day America.
Yeah.
And I'm actually kind of I'm actually kind of coming around to this way of thinking. Um, but it's kind of like this. One of the things that they say is like, hey, not only should you be fasting, and by the way, the ancient church all the way up through like the 17, even or maybe even the early 1800s, it was considered customary to, yes, fast during Lent. And by the way, you only fast for 6 days. You don't fast on Sundays. Sundays are always mini Easters. Now
Oh
you
yeah.
don't feast. You don't feast on the mini Easters, but you maybe don't fast either, if that makes any sense. You don't like go nuts, eating everything in sight, but you don't necessarily, fast either. Because it's a mini Easter. And it doesn't count in Lent either, which is why Lent is 40 days, even though Lent goes 46 days. That's because there's 6 Sundays, and the
Hmm.
6 Sundays don't count. And so it's 40 days. Um,
Yeah.
and so all of that kind of goes on. But, they kind of come down to say, but, even when Lent is over, even when Easter is over and the season of dare I say, feasting is over after like an Easter season of sorts, they say, okay, you should fast now every either Wednesday. Some people said Wednesday and Friday. Some people said Wednesday and Saturday. And
Oh.
the rationale to do it Wednesday or to do it on Saturday as opposed to Friday was that if you fasted on Saturday, then you should fast in the evening time. So that way your stomach is completely empty and you are dare I say more prepared for Holy Communion.
Mm.
So, even to the point where you say you don't want the body and blood of Christ to mix with other food items in your stomach.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, I'm not gonna. I mean, again, this is one of those things where I'm not gonna say, oh, you have to do this, but it's like it's an interesting kind of thing to kind of think about the way they think and to actually kind of come around to it and go, okay, well, they might actually have some good arguments there. They might actually have some good points to make. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so the idea is that like you never quite give up the fast, at least not fully. Except for a season of dare I say feasting. So, for instance, the Christmas season, those 12 days, that would be kind of like a feasting time of sorts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then the rest of the time, like boom, you're back into fasting. So,
Hmm.
but then Wednesday, just because it's the middle of the week, and so if you're going to lose strength, it's going to be Wednesday. But here's the other thing too. A lot of modern day traditions are actually coming around to saying, hey, look, you should also be making sure you keep your body in some kind of fitness level, right? So you should be working out.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you have a job that is physically exerting, then okay, maybe you don't need to. But a person like me who either sits or stands at a desk and on a computer all day, like maybe I should be working out a few times a week. And even with some of the rationale, and by the way, this particular part, the working out is definitely more for the men, and not so much for the ladies. And part of the rationale for that is that as the man, you should be able to protect your home, and
Yes.
you can't protect your home if you're not physically able to. And so therefore, you should make sure that your body is disciplined to where you can always protect your home.
Yeah. It's interesting just because we're talking about all the fasting, and we're really getting into food right now.
Yeah, food's a big topic.
Is now did you do the in January? Did you do the what was it?
Whole 30. Yeah,
Yeah, did you do the whole thing?
I did. I
You
did.
did, yeah. I started doing at the beginning of this year. I really was like, I'm kind of at my biggest weight I've ever been at, and I really need to start. You know, I need to start taking care of myself. And it's weird because I've been dreading this for a long time. Like I've known for over a year that I really need to
Yeah.
do this. And what's so strange though is I feel like I'm at a place where I have more self control, you know,
Hmm.
and it's strange because I'll do Sundays will be my we call it a cheat day,
Yeah.
like I don't have to stick strictly to the diet, and
Mini
I think
Easter,
what we're
buddy. Mini Easter.
mini Easter. I'll start calling it mini Easter instead of
That's
cheat
right.
day. But what I found, the thing that's weird is that I don't. I used to, when I would diet before, I would go crazy on Sundays.
Yeah.
I'd like shovel as much of the stuff as I could because it's like it's going to be a whole week till I can eat again, and it's just
Yeah.
and it's so strange because I just don't really have that now.
Yeah.
And even at times I'm almost like, well, you know what, I can have that, like I could have an ice cream ice cream or
Yeah.
something, but I'm not, like I don't even want to get like I'm gonna get a large blizzard with like Reese's chunks in it and stuff. I just like I'll get a small sundae and I'll do that. It's like it's weird because yeah, I have more self control
Yeah.
this time around, and it's so different because even some days I'll even have my mini Easter, and it's like I even lost weight, like even on that day, because I just didn't really go overboard, and that's something that I had a hard time doing when I was younger, because I think I just didn't have that self control before,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's like I think I've made a few changes and different things in my life, and I feel like I'm just able to, yeah, take that sort of farther. And so, I mean, like just talking about strengthening yourself over Lent, whether that's physical or saying no to certain things or just not doing everything your body wants all at once. It's so strange how I'm going through the same thing I've done a dozen times in my life. And it's easier this time.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm, kind of to the point of Whole 30. So I did Whole 30
Yeah.
in January. Um, I've done that for a couple years now. I actually enjoy Whole 30, but not. It's really funny. I enjoy it. I enjoy it for two different reasons, and neither one of them is what most people think of.
Yeah.
But one of them is because I like a good challenge in terms of cooking. I mean, and again, Whole 30 is like you can't have dairy, you can't have this, you can't have that. And it's like so you're kind of like, well, it's like okay, so I want to eat like a chicken Alfredo. Well, you can't have wheat, so what are you gonna make the pasta out of? Okay, you can't have milk or dairy, so what are you gonna make your Alfredo sauce out of? And by the way, no cheese, so you got to figure that out. Like, you know, and you end up using these weird ingredients to kind of mimic the taste. And some of them you get pretty good, and then others you're like, yeah, never again. I made nachos once, never again. Apparently what some people do is they will take raw cashews, they will like soak them in like water, and then they like blend them with what is it? Well, it's called nutritional yeast. It's found
Oh.
in the stores, and then they mix it with chicken broth until it's soupy, basically.
Mm.
And the nutritional yeast will give it a slight cheese taste.
Oh.
I can tell you from my experience, it is not close enough to cheese. In any scenario, I tried it. I ate it a little bit, and then I was like, "Yep, no more, no more,
Yeah.
never again, never again." So
It
not that. I'll do taco meat on some like I guess cauliflower chips is the way. You're not supposed to technically have chips, but when it's part of dinner, you can do it. But uh,
yeah.
but yeah,
That's that's interesting too, because that's another thing that's kind of helped me is I'm more creative
yeah,
about stuff. Like I've been eating like onions and mushrooms and stuff way more
yeah.
now than I ever I never ate that stuff really much in the past. And so I'm filling up my food is a lot more interesting. And I even have gotten to the point where I've gotten really good at doing scrambled eggs that
Oh
are
yeah.
almost like that they're so almost to the point where they're basically like a mash, like
Hmm.
mashed potatoes. And so I can kind of give myself a little bit of a
Uh-oh.
like it kind of it
Well,
kind of makes me feel
that
like
was
I'm having
random.
mashed potatoes even though it's eggs.
Hold
Yeah.
on, Casey.
So
We're losing you.
oh
We're.
oh no.
Oh, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I could. You said
Okay.
something like mashed potatoes, and then like just disappeared off the face of planet Earth.
Oh no.
I
Oh
know, it was
no.
terrible. It was
Yeah.
awful. I was
Yeah, it's
crying.
just interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. I've become more creative. And I mean, maybe that's
Yeah,
part of sort of the journey of everything too, of like forcing yourself to do something different that you're not just, not just throwing in corn dogs every night in the oven and there you
yeah,
go. It's like I'm having to be a little more like think through things and okay, what could I put with this and
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's like and it's made me almost better because I actually like some of the stuff I'm eating and even if I stop doing the diet eventually, I feel like I'm going to kind of maintain doing some of that stuff.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
so actually that's the other part that I actually really like about the Whole30 is that you do end up cooking at home, and you end up just by default you end up going out to eat less. You go, none of those quick meals. It's like because none of the quick meals work, for the diet
Yeah.
for the Whole30, and
Yep.
so you end up like cooking all kinds of stuff. And I mean, for one, I just enjoy cooking, so that's a huge part of it. But then the other part is also true, and that is that like that yeah, I mean, again, if you're gonna in general, if somebody wants to discipline themselves and maybe lose weight, going out to eat is a killer. Is a killer.
Yeah.
Um, they put so much salt in their food, and to be fair, a lot of it's just really good stuff, and their portion sizes are huge. And it's like,
Mhm.
you know, and then on top of that, like, oh, so this is, I mean, obviously this isn't, to some degree, I'm breaking out of theology a little bit, but like the cheesecake study.
No, what's that?
So years and years and years ago, I don't know when, but they did what they know as a cheesecake study, and they gave mice. So basically, they started normal mice, normal food, normal everything, and
Uh-huh.
then they gave them junk food like
Ah.
cheesecake, Twinkies, whatever, junk food, highly over processed, food. And what they found is after a while of eating that food, the mice got really big, of course, and they ate
Uh-huh.
themselves silly. And then
Yeah.
they tried to take them back to normal food, and the mice almost starved to death. They
Oh, wow.
absolutely refused to eat the normal food again.
Mm.
And so it's like it was kind of a testament to say like, you know, and again, a lot of debates. If you get on like the forums and stuff, like the health food stuff, they go back and forth with a lot of these things. Like it really does come down to caloric intake and outtake. But
Mhm.
there are some foods that are just going to satisfy you better and just be
Yeah.
better for you. And you know, and they're just going to do better. And a Twinkie is probably not one of them. Don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for a Twinkie, and quite frankly, some of them are quite delicious. But there's a time and place for them. But then there's also a realization that, like, yeah, when you dare to put, that kind of stuff in front of you, you got to be a lot more cautious.
Yeah. Well, it's also made me realize how like I'm starting to figure out the things that are worth eating and the things that are not worth it.
Yes.
It's like I don't want to eat a Hershey's chocolate bar because it's it's okay, but if I'm going to eat something I'm not supposed to, I'm going to eat something I actually like really 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 want, you know?
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
like it's just it's weird. It's like it's making me I'm figuring out what I truly value, and like what if there's certain foods like yes, that is something that is so good that I will skip lunch to eat that, you know. But there's other things that's like yeah, it's just not worth it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I mean, it would be okay, but it's not something that's my favorite, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just makes me think like I'm not a big Snickers person, but I think about all the times that it's like, well, there's nothing else, but there's a couple Snickers. I guess I'll eat them. Now I'm like, well, I would never eat them because I don't really like them that much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
why did I eat them
Totally.
before? Because they were just there and I was willing to eat it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
So, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I guess kind of coming back around a little bit,
yeah,
um, just again, just expand our view of fasting and what it's about and how you do it. And again, I mean, this is one of those things like, um, Jesus says when you fast. Again, I even mentioned tonight's sermon, like he doesn't say if you fast, like he's anticipating that you are going to fast. And the question is not if you do it, but when you do it. And and I think it's good to remember that as Christians, we do need to fast to some degree. And so expand your view. There's no rules that tell you exactly how you have to do it. And so even the stuff that we've been discussing tonight, like these are all some of our views and how we've done it. And obviously we're talking about dieting too and all that kind of fun stuff. But by and large, like, there's several different approaches you could take and several different ways that you can kind of go about it. But it is good. It is even spiritually good. Take those times, bring in prayer and devotion into your life, all these kind of things. Prepare yourself as Lent continues.
hmm
And I guess that's kind of where I want to end, at least for tonight on the topic of
yeah,
Lent. Now we might be able to come back to it next week. I don't know. But I'm just looking at the time going, oh man, I still got a saint to do.
yeah. You do.
I do. So any closing thoughts before I move on to the next section?
No, I think it was I that was great. I really liked a lot of things that I haven't really thought about, to be honest. So that was great.
Yeah. Oh, again, for me too. I mean, here I am and, learning new stuff. Every day is a school day, as they say. So,
Yeah.
all right, here we go.
Welcome now to Saints in the Shadows. Hear the stories of the saints, learn about things you never knew. See if you can figure out who the saint is before the end.
I don't know if you guys are going to know this one or not, but just in case, here you go. Smyrna was the sort of place where sea salt clung to your cloak and merchants knew your name. The stadium roared for athletes by day, but for prisoners by night. Ships came slicing into the harbor with Roman standards, and the streets glowed with oil lamps that left little halos in the dark. In the city walked a man who was easy to underestimate, old, soft spoken, steady. He didn't trade in theatrics. He carried memory the way some carry a family heirloom, carefully, reverently, never letting it out of his sight. People came to him because he didn't spook easily. He could smell a fad a mile off and name it. He spoke of what he had received and handed it on in the same way. He was known, at least for us tonight, affectionately and a little mysteriously as the Unburnable. Not because he sought that name, because others whispered it. He hadn't always been old, of course. Once he had been a young believer among many in a city where gods had addresses and temples and schedules. Somewhere along the way, an old fisherman from across the sea took him under his wing, a man who spoke much of love and of truth, and of a teacher who had taught him both. The old fisherman's name? You've heard it. So had everyone in Asia Minor. From that tutor, the unburnable learned not a new philosophy, but a way of remembering, of keeping alive what was handed down face to face. He learned that fidelity is not stubbornness, it is devotion. He learned that the past is not a museum, it's a living fire. Years passed. The young man became a shepherd of souls in Smyrna. He visited the sick, he remembered travelers. He taught in simple rooms where lamps smoked and sandals scraped stone. He wrote a single letter that we still have, a plain, sturdy letter to a nearby church, about faith and endurance, and the kind of love that does the dishes. He wasn't flashy, he was reliable, and reliable can be dangerous. Because empires do not fear spectacle, they fear perseverance. In time, accusations sharpened. The market stalls buzzed with rumors. The stadium began to hunger for blood. When a handful of believers were seized, the crowd, unsatisfied, called for a bigger name. They shouted for the unburnable. Friends hid him at first. He consented, briefly. Prudence is a virtue, too. He prayed. He slept. He dreamed that the pillow under his head had caught fire. Awakening, he told those with him, matter-of-factly, in fact, I shall be burned alive. Not panicked, not dramatic, just prepared. When the knock finally came, he did an unexpected thing. He welcomed the men who came to take him. He ordered food and drink brought to them. He asked for time to pray. They gave him an hour. He took 2. Hard men changed their minds in that room. If not about their orders, then about the man. It is difficult to hate someone who feeds you, but orders are orders. They brought him to the stadium, into a world of shouts and heat and tension. The official presiding did what officials do. He made the easy offer first. Just swear by Caesar. Say the words. Curse the name you've confessed and go home. You would think an old man might bend. Men who have lived long have much to lose, but the older he was, the longer his memory stretched. He answered with a sentence that still rings like hammered bronze. 86 years have I served him, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king who saved me? The crowd roared as if they had won a prize. The sentence was set. A pile was prepared. They moved to nail him to the stake to make sure he would not flinch when the heat surged. Again, the old man surprised them. Leave me as I am, he said. He who gives me to endure the fire will give me to stand unmoved. They bound him without nails. Witnesses later wrote that they saw with astonishment the flame rose, hungry, bright, triumphant, and then arched. It swelled like a sail caught in the wind from nowhere and curved around him in a ring. The heat was there, the blaze was there, but the body within the circle stood, hands bound, praying as if warmed by a hearth. At last, frustrated, an executioner stepped in with a blade. But the fire would not finish, steel did. The old man fell, not with a shout, but with the hush that follows a prayer. The stadium exalted, the crowd dispersed, the city returned to its markets and its ships and its lamps. But the story would not stay put. It traveled faster than any galley. In rooms far from Smyrna, rooms where oil lamps were smoked and sandals also scraped stone, believers told and retold what they had heard. They told of a shepherd who welcomed his captors, of a prayer that ran long, of an offer refused with a line that felt like a lifetime, of a flame that could not do its ordinary work. A small bundle of parchment began to circulate. The martyrdom of Polycarp, the first detailed account of a Christian martyr outside of the pages of Scripture. It read not like a legend, but like a letter. The way eyewitnesses talk when they want you to know exactly what happened. That bundle put spine into the timid and ballast into the brave. It leapt from Asia to Gaul, where a boy named Irenaeus would grow up into a bishop who never forgot the sound of his teacher's voice. And that is how a single life becomes a bridge. From the fisherman who once leaned on a Galilean chest, to the old man in Smyrna who would not curse his king, to the theologian and lion who taught the West how to keep the fire and not the smoke. The unburnable never asked for a title. He only guarded a flame he had not lit, and he passed it on unextinguished. And now, the part you may have guessed, but perhaps not felt until this moment. The unbearable had a given name. It was the name of that bundle of parchment, the name on the lips of the stadium and the crowd, the name that carried from youth to old age, from study to stake. Polycarp of Smyrna, bishop, martyr, saint. All right. That was a long one.
That was.
Yeah, it was. It was. But I like it. I think it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
So that is Polycarp of Smyrna. Now, just in case you didn't figure out, the man who learned in Galilean, that was John. Polycarp is one of those unique individuals because he is a direct link to the disciples. That is to say, he sat at the feet of John, and we know he sat at the feet of John, and we have Polycarp's writing. And Polycarp then influenced Irenaeus, which is kind of what I just said. So, and Irenaeus influenced several others. And so we this is one of those really interesting things. We actually have kind of a pretty direct line straight from the apostles and disciples all the way through. We don't have necessarily a lot. We don't have a lot of writing from the age of Polycarp, but we do have a few things. So,
yeah.
So interesting tidbits, interesting things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I was looking at the dare I say the meal options, and you should celebrate him on Monday, February 23rd. And, I'll be frank with you. I ask AI to come up with stuff. I looked in my books to come up with stuff, and they didn't come up with nothing good. They just didn't. And so here's my thought. Here is my thoughts. The whole thing is we're gonna call Polycarp the Unburnable because of how he died. Ultimately, not with the flame, even though they lit him up, but by steel. And so here's what I think. Have an old fashioned, but have it smoked. Cold smoke. And then honestly, I was thinking, oh man, maybe you should do something smoked, but smoking things burns. And so maybe, if you really want to go, like, I would think a cold smoked salmon would be really fabulous.
That does sound good.
It does, doesn't it? You ever have cold smoked salmon?
I haven't, but I love fish. Like I'll eat anything that's like, I love seafood and fish and all that. Yeah. So it sounds amazing. I would love to try that.
Yeah, so next time. So do you ever eat like dips with like cream cheese, like based dips or something like that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So on the next Sunday, the next mini Easter,
yes,
go to your store and pick up like a cream, any type of dip like that. And then pick up a little pack. It's just a little pack of smoked salmon. It'll be cold smoked. You can't hot smoke salmon. You can, but it doesn't turn out very well. So it'll be cold smoked. Now it'll be super salty. And take off a chunk of that, dip like a cracker or a chip in it, and then put that piece of smoked salmon right on top of it. It's worth it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's fantastic.
Ooh.
So, so there you go. There's my Saints in the Shadows for today.
Very nice.
All right. And again, that's on Monday. And I should also note this, in this segment right now, as we're recording, it's in the evening of Ash Wednesday on February 18th. This is actually, and it's hard because it's Ash Wednesday as well. This is actually the commemoration of Martin Luther today.
Oh.
I didn't do it last week since it was directly on a Wednesday and we record on Wednesdays. And I kind of debated a little bit back in that. I should have probably mentioned it, but it is. So Martin Luther died on February 18th, 1546. And so, yeah. So technically today is Martin Luther Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Ash Wednesday.
And Ash Wednesday. So yeah, there you go. But again, I got Polycarp coming ahead because that's on Monday, so that's during the week. So yeah, there you go. And
so it ends. The light shines in the shadow. And now you know more about the story of one of the saints of history.
All right, couple more segments we got to get to. We have to get this one we haven't had in quite a while, but I'll just put it in there.
And it's time for Lectionary Loop and our look at the upcoming lectionary texts.
All right, being the first Sunday in Lent, and I'll make this quick. I'm not going to go too long on this, but it is the first Sunday in Lent. And so we have a plethora of texts, but the two key texts that we have for this coming Sunday is the Genesis passages, which is the fall of man, so Genesis 3, and the curses. So this is Adam and Eve and the apple, and then I think the curses right at the tail end of the text. And so ultimately the fall of mankind is the first thing. And then the second thing, and again, it kind of goes along with it, and the idea is basically focusing a little bit on temptation, because you have the temptation of Jesus, and that's in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4. But what's really interesting in both of these cases is and this is actually one of the things that I'm going to highlight probably in my sermon and some other things is a lot of this comes down to identity. And I know that sounds fascinating, but like the way Eve is tempted by the devil has a lot to do with who she is from an identity standpoint. And Satan really attacks, her identity. Did God really say, and again, Adam was the one who bore the word of God. That is to say, God told Adam was the one who was supposed to tell Eve. And so realize, like, even that attack is actually an attack on Eve's very identity. And you see the same thing with Jesus. When Jesus is being tempted in the wilderness, what Satan is doing is he is actually tempting the very identity of who Jesus is. The first temptation, like turn these stones into bread. Well, that's an attack. Jesus could turn the stones into bread. He's God. The question is will he misuse his powers by being God, by being the Son of God, and will he misuse those for his own selfish gain? And so it is an attack on his identity of who he is. And all of them are going to follow suit like that. All of them are attacking a different element of Jesus' identity. And I think that's important for us to remember as well, because like as we go out as brothers and sisters in Christ, as children of God, we need to realize like Satan's never going to come up to us and ask us to turn a bunch of rocks into bread. We couldn't do that. But he is going to ask us to reject our identity as children of God. He's going to ask us, did God really say? And he's going to really attack who you are. And he's going to attack your identity. It's what he did to Eve. It's what he does to us. It's what he did to Jesus. So anyway, there's some highlights for our lectionary loop right there. So any thoughts?
No, it's an interesting topic. I don't know. Temptation is definitely a very interesting thing to get into, because I think, especially right now, I see that a lot with people. I think just, I don't know. I'm getting very broad, but it's just, I think, it's always interesting to me the way like knowledge was used as like a temptation, and lately I've kind of been thinking about the fact that we have a phone with all the knowledge in the world on it, and how kind of difficult it is to not be glued to your phone.
Yeah.
because even I think about scrolling through YouTube or something, and like they have your shorts, these little short videos that just scroll one to the next, and it's so funny because I wasn't thinking about uh, what Paris Hilton had to go through when she was starting out. But for some reason, I slide to the next video, and there's Paris Hilton talking about something, and there I am watching it. It's so weird because it's like I never sat there and thought I need to learn about this today, but it's like this knowledge, and you're kind of like, well, I kind of wonder what did happen, and it's like we all are so uh I don't know, we're just the type of creatures that we want to know about stuff. We want to understand how that works. I think most people do. And sometimes I feel like I have to stop and like turn my phone off and just stop like being so focused on like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And just start like cleaning my room or something that I need to do. So yeah.
You're absolutely right. I almost wonder if we shouldn't write this down or type it up somehow and save this for another, because I mean we could actually do an entire podcast on that topic and really dig into that. And actually that might not be a bad idea. We should take note of that one.
That would be very interesting to get into. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, let's table that one. I think we'll come back.
Okay.
What's the big term they use in business? We'll circle back.
Yeah. We'll circle back.
We'll circle back to that one. But anyway, so let's move on to our very last segment.
Probably.
All right. Are we ready for church chatter? Oh, we got it.
There we go. Church chatter. So anyway, big things going on at St. John Sam Prairie. Obviously, we just started Lent. We're doing a sermon series called Calling Us Home, kind of going with the home theme this year. So we've been kind of having a lot of fun with that. Of course, Good Shepherd is having their annual spaghetti and talent show on Friday. So that starts at 4:00. I think you can eat at 4:00, and the talent show starts at 6:00. So lots of exciting stuff going on. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, now is the time if you want to go to a Starry Night with You, the annual auction that we have. It is March 21st. That's a Saturday. And you can buy tickets. Now you can buy them online. You can go to the website. You can go to the Facebook page. You can also, if one of the churches, like my church, for instance, has some paper copies that you can print out and fill out and get that done. But anyway, it's a great time. It's a great meal. It's a great way to support Good Shepherd. So just keep that in your back pocket. And so those are some of the big highlights of things going on around St. John Sam Prairie. Exciting times. So what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Not a whole lot right now. Our preschool's kind of starting to send out stuff about next school year and getting people signed up. But yeah, I mean, besides, last week I told everybody, which you guys most people already knew about the pastor who's going to be coming. So really, buddy. I mean, at this point, we're just really just waiting and preparing for that. So that's really what we got going on right now. So
fair enough. Yeah. Absolutely. No, that I still think that's awesome. I mean, it's been so long with you guys trying to wait for this. So yeah, it's super exciting.
Super exciting. We're ready to get working, doing some stuff. So
absolutely
exciting.
Absolutely. No, I think that's awesome. So all right. Well, I think that's all I have for this evening. You got anything else to add?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, whenever it is that you have to be listening. And God's blessings to all of you. Bye.
Bye.